When Akamaka finally gives birth during a violent and amberous storm, everyone freezes. The baby arrives screaming. But two shadows rise behind him, one soft as sunrise, the other sharp as a blade. As he grows, the shadows begin choosing moments for him, pulling his life and the entire family toward two terrifyingly different futures. Every elder, pastor, and neighbor claims to know which path he belongs to, but the child himself begins to show signs no one can explain. Akamaka must face an impossible truth. Let's go deep into the story. Akamaka stood by the window of her small flat in Onitsha, staring at her reflection. She was 6 months pregnant, but something strange had been haunting her. Every night, when the light from the corridor spilled into her room, she noticed her belly cast two shadows on the wall, one faint and soft, the other dark and sharp. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, until her mother-in-law whispered words that sent chills down her spine. "This is not ordinary. You must choose which child will come forth." Her husband, Uche, dismissed it as superstition, but the words kept echoing in her mind. The baby she carried was no longer just her hope for the future. It had become a silent battlefield. And deep inside, Akamaka knew this was not her imagination. The shadows were alive, shifting, stretching, as though the unborn child was fighting within itself. The whispers began to spread in the neighborhood. At the market, women paused their conversations when Akamaka walked by. Some crossed themselves. Others shook their heads. Her best friend Adana urged her to see a pastor, while her mother-in-law insisted the elders of the village must be consulted before it was too late. Late at night, Akamaka would press her palm against her stomach and whisper, "My child, who are you? What will you become?" Sometimes she felt soft kicks, like gentle reassurance. Other times, sharp twists that left her gasping. It was as if two different babies were inside her, fighting for dominance. Her dreams grew darker. In one, she saw her baby smiling, bringing light to the whole neighborhood. In another, she saw fire and ashes, with her child standing in the middle of destruction. Each time she woke drenched in sweat, her heart pounding with fear. When the elders finally gathered in her husband's hometown, the air was thick with incense and tension. They sat in a circle, their wrinkled faces hard to read. One elder spoke, "Two shadows cannot live in one womb. One will save, one will destroy. Akamaka must decide which child she will bring into this world." But how could she choose? She was not God. Tears welled in her eyes as she asked, "How can a mother decide between light and dark before birth?" The elders offered no comfort, only riddles. "A sacrifice must be made," one of them said, his voice heavy. "The path chosen now will shape the destiny of generations." Her husband, Uche, grew restless. "Enough of this nonsense," he shouted. "This is fear and control. My wife will not kill our child." Yet even as he spoke, his eyes betrayed unease. He had seen the shadows himself. He had heard the whispers in the compound. The pressure grew unbearable. Neighbors began avoiding them. Landlord muttered about bad luck. Even Uche's friends advised him to be careful with his wife. Akamaka felt isolated, trapped between tradition and modernity. One night, during a blackout, the room was lit only by a flickering candle. She looked at the wall and saw it again, two shadows dancing, moving against each other like rivals. And then she heard it, two voices, one soft, saying, "Mama, let me come." The other harsh, whispering, "Choose me, or you will regret it." She screamed. Uche rushed in, holding her trembling body. But she could not tell him what she heard. How could she explain that her unborn child had already begun speaking to her? The pregnancy became a war zone of emotions. Akamaka stopped sleeping. Her mother begged her to visit a traditional healer, but Uche wanted nothing to do with it. He clung to science, insisting they wait for the hospital scans. At the hospital, the doctor frowned at the monitor. "Strange," he muttered. "It looks like one baby, but..." He hesitated. "I'm seeing something unusual with the heartbeat." almost like two rhythms fighting. Akamaka froze. Even science confirmed what tradition had warned. There were two forces inside her, the light and the dark, but only one would be born. The day came when she could no longer ignore it. She sat in church, hands trembling, while the pastor prayed over her belly. Suddenly, she convulsed, and everyone gasped as the shadow of a baby stretched across the wall. Two shadows again. The congregation panicked. Some fled, some cried out. The pastor's voice shook. "Woman, the heavens demand your decision. Will you call forth the child of light or the child of darkness?" Tears blurred her eyes. Her whole body shook. In her heart, she knew this choice was more than about her child. It was about her future, her family, her city, perhaps the entire world. The pregnancy dragged on like a storm cloud. At home, Uche distanced himself, retreating into silence. He loved his wife, but he was terrified of the unknown. Neighbors gossiped louder, some claiming Akamaka had been cursed, others predicting greatness. One night, as rain pounded the roof, Akamaka dreamed again. She saw two paths. On one path, her child wore white, carrying books, healing the sick, lifting the poor. On the other, the child wore black, holding money and power, yet leaving a trail of broken bodies. When she woke, her pillow was wet with tears. "What if I choose wrong?" she whispered to herself. "What if love is not enough?" Labor came unexpectedly. She screamed through the night as thunder rolled over Onitsha. Power went out. Only lantern light filled the room. The midwife worked quickly, sweat pouring down her face. Then it happened. A cry pierced the darkness. But it wasn't one cry, it was two. High and low, soft and harsh. Everyone froze. The midwife dropped her tools. In her arms lay one baby, but behind him on the wall, two shadows. Still there, still fighting. Everyone stared in horror. It was not over. The choice had only begun. The child grew, and the mystery deepened. Sometimes he was gentle, sharing his food, calming other children. Other times he lashed out violently, eyes blazing with a darkness that seemed far beyond his age. Teachers complained. Neighbors whispered louder. One afternoon, Akamaka found him in their kitchen, staring at the knife drawer. "Mama," he said in a chilling tone, "what if I cut away my shadow?" She pulled him close, tears filling her eyes. "You don't need to cut anything, my son. You just need love." But as he hugged her, she noticed it again. On the wall behind them, two shadows. One hugging, one holding a knife. As the years passed, the city of Onitsha began to change. Strange incidents followed the boy. Businesses rose and fell around him. People who crossed him suffered losses. Those he favored prospered. Some called him blessed. Others called him cursed. Akamaka lived in constant fear, torn between protecting her child and protecting the world from him. Uche withdrew further, unable to accept the boy's dual nature. The family began to fracture, love eroding under the weight of unspoken fear. One night, the boy confronted his mother. "Mama, tell me the truth. Am I the savior or the destroyer?" His eyes were wide, searching. Akamaka's lips trembled. She wanted to say savior. She wanted to believe it, but the truth was heavier. "You are both," she whispered. "And one day, you will have to choose for yourself." The boy turned away, silent, but his shadows stretched long across the wall, flickering in the dim light. One calm, one restless. The story spread across Anambra. The child with two shadows, people whispered. Some came to seek his blessing. Others came to curse his name. Politicians tried to use him. Pastors tried to bind him. Scientists tried to study him. But no one could explain him. Akamaka watched helplessly as her son became a symbol of fear and hope. And every night, she wondered, had she chosen right? Or had she unleashed something the world was not ready for? As the boy turned 12, a final dream came to Akamaka. She saw him standing at a crossroads, two shadows pulling at him in opposite directions. One led to light, the other to fire. He turned to her and asked, "Mama, which way?" But she could not speak. Her voice was gone. She woke up with tears streaming down her face. She realized the truth. No elder, no mother, no tradition could decide his fate. He would have to choose. And that choice had not yet come. Now, in the streets of Onitsha, people still whisper about him. Some swear he will save them. Others fear he will destroy them. And Akamaka, older now, still watches him closely, wondering which shadow will win when the time comes. Because sometimes when a night is quiet, she still hears it, two voices calling from one body. One begging for love, the other whispering for power. And the scariest part? The boy hasn't chosen yet. And in the end, when the final choice is made and the world must live with its consequences, one truth remains unshaken. A single decision can rewrite the destiny of an entire family. And sometimes even a whole community. But here's the real question. If you were in Akamaka's place, and your own child carried both light and darkness, which shadow would you choose? If this story moved you, hit like, share it with someone who loves deep stories, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Your support keeps these powerful stories alive.